So I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and this is going to be my entry, my starting quest, if you will, to make a horror franchise tier list. Now I don't want to go over every single horror franchise because golly, that is a lot of them. I'll kind of start initially by going over like the older ones. We're talking the Leprechauns. We're talking about Friday the 13th. We're talking about The Evil Dead. We're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween. There's a ton of them. But what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to pick a franchise and I'm going to watch all the movies, and I want to rank the movies within the franchise before I rank the franchise amongst the other franchises.
What?
That is at least the plan. We don't know how it's going to go, nor how long it's going to take. But the first one we're going to attempt to do is The Evil Dead. This happens to be probably my favorite franchise, and even after I just watched all of them, I reinforce the reason why I feel that way because they are good movies. But we'll figure out which ones in my mind are actually the super duper solid ones and which ones kind of just float there like a log. So I don't want to cherry pick too much. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go, well, this is kind of easy. It's the first one, and I'm assuming this is going to be in order. So all right, here we go. Well, it's going to be the first one, and the first one's going in to the groovy baby. So not every franchise beginner ends up actually being that good. Off the top of my head, the one I know doesn't hit that well is the first Friday the 13th. I think that one was pretty boring, stale. Story was okay, right? I mean, I think the story is what carries the franchise as far as like why they wanted to do more, but that movie in particular just wasn't that good. I think that one was a slow burner. And the only exciting thing was at the very end when Jason snatches homegirl from the lake and reels her in. And that was kind of it. But you kind of expected that because they did like a slow down scene until the end. So, or a slow down part to kind of like know something's going to happen. But besides that, that would be the one I know off the top of my head wasn't the greatest. But I would say this one was really good. And this happens to be the one that kind of starts it all with Mr. Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. This one briefly is just you got a group of friends, they're going off on a little adventure. They go to a cabin for a little getaway. Once they're in the cabin, one of the homegirls gets possessed. Her arm starts twinging like it's in freaking idle hands. She sketches out something on a notebook that happens to be a book. Meanwhile, a couple of them find that there's a cellar in the cabin. They open the cellar, and they go down. They find a book, the Necronomicon, and a recording with it. And when they get back up, homie starts playing the record. The record then reveals that there's an incantation within the Necronomicon. It gets recited, and boom, we got Deadites. Really good. It's gory. It's just for that time, it's super graphic, gory. I think it was like shown in limited theaters, which I would understand at that point because it is. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's a pretty damn gory movie, and this was back in the late '70s. So, I would only imagine that they had some problems. Let's see if there was an NC-17, which I think it was teetering between like a non-rating or something like that. I can see why. The very end, though, Ash does end up murking them all, and then at the very end of that movie, Ash gets not really chased. I guess the entity's kind of like just lunging its way towards Ash as he's just standing there because he just got done massacring everybody who became a Deadite. Smacks him, and he goes flying. And that's where we go into number two, which is pretty damn close. I would say The Evil Dead 2 is really a really good movie. It's different in that they focus a little bit more on the comedy aspect of it. I think they kind of found something in the first one that had some like comedic elements to it, whether it's some of the things that the Deadites say, the way they moved, and some of the little one-liners that Bruce Campbell ends up saying a lot more because that's what he ends up being known for are his like funny like one-liners. This one kind of like goes a little bit into that more. So you have a little bit more comedy. This one apparently, from what I gathered, was supposed to be Sam Raimi's idea for Army of Darkness was supposed to be The Evil Dead 2, but they didn't want to greenlight that one, so they had to get a different one to actually like fund slash publish the movie, but they didn't want to do what he wanted to do as far as the Army of Darkness, so they made The Evil Dead 2. Bigger budget, more like practical effects, more claymation. There's quite a few bits of claymation in here, which I think are really cool. I'm a huge fan of claymation, but still very gory. This follows right after number two, but this one you can't pick up like right after number one ends. You really can't pick up number two and start from the very beginning. There's like a bit of fluff in the beginning, and they had to like retell what happened in the first one, but they did it with a different set of crew. They didn't necessarily have the rights to the first movie. It's a bunch of like mumbo jumbo, but essentially at the end of number one, he's flying. Start number two, he should be flying, lands in a puddle of water, becomes a deadite. The sun kind of like dries it out of him, and you kind of start the wheel all over again. He's still at the cabin. Another fresh crew come, and it just gets a little bit more whimsical. There's like that whole like iconic scene where his hand also is becoming possessed because it got bit by his girlfriend who became a deadite, but she was just a floating head, bites his hand. Now he gets infected. Now his hand's doing the idle hand thing where it's like fucking with him. He's smashing plates over himself, and he ends up cutting his hand off, and that's where you get the iconic like look with Ash with the nub. That's where Ash is like born, is Evil Dead 2. So that's why you kind of have to put it relatively high on the top, because Ash is born from the Evil Dead 2. Again, really good movie. He ends up obviously fighting off the Deadites, but this time, Homegirl that was about to die recites an incantation, and it creates this like portal vortex thing that sucks the Deadite entity in. But along with that, it sucks in Ash William and his Oldsmobile Delta 88, and they end up in the medieval period, which is where we pick up an Army of Darkness, which I will say I'll put that in pretty close. Now, the Army of Darkness is way different. So we go from being different in Evil Dead 2 because you're focusing a little bit more on the comedic aspect. Now you go into the Army of Darkness, which is kind of just a medieval dark fantasy comedy movie. Way different. The tone is kind of there. You still have like deadites in a sense. You get the deadite in the beginning, but Ash just pumps it full of lead and it dies. But the whole thing now is Ash is in the medieval period. He gets trapped between this war by getting caught by King Arthur's men because they think that he's serving the Duke, or Duke Henry, and he's caught in between this whole thing. He just wants to go back home. But the old man tells him, hey, there's a book called the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. Hey, once you find that, bring it back. I'll recite an incantation that's in there, and boom, you'll go back home. So Ash goes, all right, fine. Off to an adventure he goes. He ends up going to the location where the old man tells him that the book is located, finds 3 of them, and that's where we get the first canonical look at the 3 Necronomicons, which play a different part in the movies because they do different things. It's still the Kandarian demon, but there's different methods of what it's doing to possess you, different ways to get rid of it, and he doesn't know which one it is. He's then told beforehand, hey, there's a specific thing you have to say, and if you don't say it, you're gonna wreak doom to us all. He forgets what the hell he's supposed to say, so he just creates some weird words, grabs the book. Deadeyes get arisen, which ends up being Ash, and then Ash then resurrects other demons, and then they create the Army of Darkness, which is the title sequence of this movie. The good Ash gets Duke Henry, King Arthur's men to come together and fight the Army of Darkness. They end up prevailing. They kill the Army of Darkness. Ash is then transported back to the present time, and when we get there, he goes back and he's in his little like grocery store job. A deadite's there, pumps the deadite full of lead again, kills it, and then he has his cheesy one-liners, and there you go. Fun watch. It's not completely void from the Evil Dead 1 and 2, but it is different. So it's almost, I mean, you should know the mainline story. You kind of will get lost in some aspects of it, but besides that, it is a really fun watch. I do enjoy that. Now, this one, okay, this is a good one. This is going right up here, baby. The Evil Dead, not remake, the continuation, the 2013 Evil Dead. I did watch this one in theaters, which I'm happy I did because it was something to see for sure. It was really dark and sinister. I thought it was what the first one was trying to do in the 70s, I feel like this one did perfectly well in the mid 2000s. Super gory, but it just feels more darker. It feels more, shall I say, evil? Perhaps. Very good though. This one obviously a little bit different in the story. Obviously, the friends go to the cabin, but this one's for a different purpose. The main protagonist, she ends up being a opioid addicted person or whatever. So they go on this little retreat so that they can kind of have her go through these quick little withdrawals and then bring her back home so she can be free from the addiction. That goes horribly wrong because apparently this is not the first rodeo. This has been multiple attempts at trying to do this. So as she gets possessed because homeboy finds a cellar in the or homeboy finds well yeah actually homeboy does find a cellar, and in the cellar is the place where they burned up Homegirl from the very beginning, because the very beginning of this movie opens up with a dad with his daughter chained up to this freaking post with these like shamanistic indigenous people trying to do some kind of like witchcrafty thing to first of all you don't know what's happening, and then as they're reciting something then you find out, oh, his daughter is a deadite, and it's a very freaking terrifying deadite. He burns her on the stake and then blasts her with a shotgun. And that cellar is the one that they find all the little knickknacks in there. The Necronomicon. Homeboy with the glasses is in there jotting down some notes. Actually, no, he's shading with a pencil, finds that there's like this incantation that's imprinted in the paper, recites the incantation, and boom, homie that is now going through withdrawals is not only going through withdrawals because drug addiction strong, brother, and now she's getting freaking possessed by the Kandari demon. So this one, I'm sorry, but she kind of been dealt the wrong hand because now she's going to be suffering from all freaking points. So she gets thrust out in the, or she gets lost out in the woods. The woods then fondle her. She comes back, and dude, this movie is just straight brutal up until the very end. And the ending was tight because then you actually get the Kandarian demon chasing after her after she gets depossessed. And there's this whole scene of like the car flips over, lands on her hand. Now she's got to yank her hand out, severs her freaking hand. That was just nuts. Not even to mention like just everything you already had to endure beforehand. It was already freaking nuts. There's too many things to kind of go over. But she goes and she has the classic chainsaw, fucking just straight Gears of War's the damn entity or demon, whatever. And hey, we get the ending of The Evil Dead 1. Very good movie. I'll say for the next one, The Evil Dead, this is the television show. So this one, you know what? I'm gonna put pretty damn close because this is a good one. It holds canonically like what's going on. The only difference is now there's a person that was kind of like in charge of the book per se. I don't know if it was like writing or whatever, but she ends up being the one that's trying to locate it because she knows that there's been deadites that have been released. Her whole thing is, I want to take the book so that I can recite the incantation. I can be in charge of all of them and make sure that they keep them at bay. The show is fantastic. It only went on for a few seasons, unfortunately. I think it had some cool, funny, comedic elements to it to kind of go along with like the Army of Darkness and the Evil Dead 2. You have Ash Williams' iconic look with the manufactured like nub hand with the chainsaw attached to it. Super cool because when you get that part, it's tight. It's like it's flying in the air. He's going, reaching for it, fucking connects, and then there you go. Very good show. The two other characters that are alongside Ash the whole time I thought were really funny. One's kind of like that more deadpan, like serious, and the other one's just a goofy, a goofy goober. Really good. I thought it was fun. I wish it went a little bit longer, but maybe it wasn't meant to be a super long series. It was like, hey, we have a start and we have an end, and we just want to figure out a way to get there, and we will get there. All right, you know what? And I think these ones are for the seasons, and I'm not going to go to the seasons. I just wanted to go as a whole. Now for the next one, Evil Dead Rise. I'm gonna have, you know what? I'm gonna put okay. It's going to be okay. Not bad. Not a bad movie. had a lot of good elements. Again, the one thing I would say is really consistent with the Evil Dead movies is its violence. Or its violence and gore are just through the roofs. I don't think that any of these movies really let go of like that aspect. And I think that is important because that's kind of what makes it so unique in this franchise. Like that's what it was built on in the first Evil Dead. And it certainly never felt like it let go through any of the other ones. But this one, I thought the story was okay. It was, I think, nothing necessarily was wrong. I just don't feel like it lived up as strong as the other ones. This one was, it was decent. You have homegirl Beth. She is a guitar roadie. Ends up finding out that she is with child. She's like, well, F this noise. I'm going to my sister. So she goes to her sister, and her sister is in a like this weird like old style hotel, or not hotel, but like this I guess like an apartment complex with their three kids. You find out that the dad is gone. No, I don't. It doesn't really tell you where he went or what happened. He's just gone after this little kumbaya they had. She then sends the kids to go get like some hot and ready from Little Caesars. When they come back, there's like a huge earthquake that ends up happening. It shatters the ground in the apartment complex, like underground to garage, I guess you would say. It splits a hole there, and then end up finding that there's like this secret chamber. So one of the sons, or the only son rather, Danny, goes down there, finds that there's a tape and this book that has teeth on it, grabs those because he thought that'd be a fantastic idea, shoots back over to his room after apparently he crushes some Zaws. And then when he's there in his room, he puts the record on because he's a DJ, of course. And once it's happening, the incantation is being recited. And the interesting part is like most of this, the incantation that's being played is almost like it's supposed to be the same thing that the other people have read throughout the other Evil Deads. It's this whole thing from like the 1920s on this like expedition or whatever. Regardless, as he as the record's playing, reciting the incantation, it is then flipping through the pages of this book, and there we find out that the incantation is now complete. And now Ellie, the mom of the bunch, is the one that ends up getting possessed. And I'll say it is pretty brutal. Again, it's not, you know what? It's funny because you kind of expect it, but when you see all the limbs flying out, the shanks going in skin, and all these like burning flesh. Ooh, the cheese grater thing. Whoo, you kind of forget that this is what the whole series is about. It's just very brutal, and I like it. I like it. I think there was some creepy scenes. I like the whole like visual from the peephole. You get to see her like murking people that are in the hallway. One thing I will say that I do appreciate what this movie did as far as like a camera shot. You also see this in Lee Cronin, who did direct this one, also did direct The Mummy Returned, or The Mummy. It's just The Mummy. It's Lee Cronin's The Mummy. It's like this close up shot where you see the face of the individual, but then like it's got that distorted background as they're talking. I think that's a really cool shot. Lee Cronin uses it in this one, then he also uses it in The Mummy, which I will kind of come back to. You do get to see that. Either way, now he's got to find out, wait, how do we get rid of this? So what ends up happening, right, is unlike the burning of at the stake or whatever, there's like at the very end, all the possessed people become this like amalgamation of this like weird flesh monster thing that's like crawling around trying to get at Beth and the kids. Well, Beth and the little girl rather, because the other two kids got freaking destroyed. Well, one got taken over and the other one just died. And it's like this weird thing with like multiple heads and hands and feet, and it's crawling all over the place. Well, either way, they make their way over to a wood chipper. They turn on the wood chipper. After a little bit of a tussle, she gets Sparta kicked into the wood chipper. The wood chipper then eats up all the fleshy monstrosity that has been curated, and boom, then you're kind of done. And then the beginning of the Evil Dead Rise ends up being the very end of the Evil Dead Rise and how we got to the beginning of Evil Dead Rise. Really cool. I think what's fun about the last two movies, well, Evil Dead Rise and the Evil Dead 2013, is that it starts off with a different story that you end up coming back to or finding out bits and pieces of it through the main story. The first one, you get it in the very beginning because they go in the chamber, and that's the chamber where they burn our homie burns his daughter and blasts her with a shotgun. And the Evil Dead Rise, the beginning of that movie is this whole like summer camp kind of thing, and that was already kind of crazy. And then you realize that the ending or the beginning of the Evil Dead Rise is the start, or the ending of it was the start of the Evil Dead Rise. If that makes any sense, it probably doesn't. But if it doesn't, then just watch the movie. You'll figure that out. It's not that bad. I did also watch Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Not bad. Um, Obviously, initially I thought it was very reminiscent of the Evil Dead, and I didn't realize that he was the one that directed the Evil Dead Rise, which is pretty cool. Also found out that Lee Cronin's The Mummy is also in the same universe as the Evil Dead. It's not, as far as I know and I'm aware, from what I gathered on the internet, it's not tied into the mainline story. It just takes place within that universe. uh Same timeline, but we're sprouting a little differently. We're not going on the Evil Dead tangent. We're somewhere else, but we're on the same timeline, right? The same but different. That's at least how I took it from what I read. Now if something changes and I do find out, then maybe I will. I would put it at okay, if I had to, right off the cuff, just thinking about it, because it was okay, wasn't great, creepy, but kind of weird how like in some of the scenes, kind of a bit of a tangent, I know, but like if you have seen it, which I hope by this time you have, when she's already like super possessed, and so was the little girl, the younger sister, like the younger sister's out here like yanking out teeth, dude, at this like open casket kind of like remembrance funeral thing for the grandma. Nobody saw that. Like, how does nobody see this little girl just straight ripping out teeth? How did nobody see the girl crawl out of this hole from the freaking ceiling and just now crawling on the ceiling? I don't know. It's like you really got to suspend like some kind of like disbelief, and things that are obvious somehow just don't become obvious. I don't know. Again, that would be an okay. It wasn't terrible. There's just some things I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know about this. All in all, the thing with the Evil Dead that I can say confidently is after watching all these movies, it it is a hard one to kind of beat, because none of these movies skip a beat. See, I used beat twice. None of them do. I think they're all fantastic movies in their own right. Sure, some of them aren't as strong as some other ones, but dude, none of them miss. None of them are boring. None of them are terrible at all. Like, they are all really good movies, and I know from my remembrance of all the other horror franchises, I cannot say the same thing. So I do know when I rate this one, it's going to be up there. It's a very good franchise. If you haven't seen them all, I would definitely recommend watching them. They are so fun to watch. If you were into like possession, in a sense, like the possession stuff, like gory, hacking stuff off and limbs flying everywhere, and some comedic stuff, I think this is, well, the comedic stuff aren't in the newer ones. They're kind of more in the older ones. You're really going to like this series. It's by far one of the best ones out there. And again, I think it's going to be a tough time trying to outdo The Evil Dead. But that's kind of where I land on the Evil Dead franchise as a whole. The next one I am going to be doing is It. And we will see if that one is just as successful as The Evil Dead. Let me know your thoughts and I will read them. Peace.